Navigating the Night Sky in episode 517 of the Actual Astronomy Podcast. I'm Chris, and joining me is Shane. We are amateur astronomers who love looking up the night sky, and this podcast is for everybody who enjoys going out under the stars. So we're recording between Christmas and New Year's here. Shane, how have your holidays been going?
Very relaxing. And yeah, it's been good. Nice recharge, and still have about a week left. Sadly, no observing.
Oh.
Conditions haven't been that great for any kind of astronomy adventures, but nonetheless, it's good to be with family and friends over the holidays, and it's been great so far.
Yeah, we had a much colder and sadly cloudier December than in the past few years, eh?
Yeah. It really didn't give us many opportunities. I saw Jupiter a few times in the early morning on my way to work, or kind of in between clouds here and there, but it just really hasn't been great at all.
No. Do you remember last Christmas Day?
It's pretty warm, wasn't it?
+3
Yeah.
and clear. And we got up and my wife hadn't. I'm not really that big into presents. She said, "I really didn't get you much for Christmas." And I said, "Well, I've got the last minute gift for you. We can go to the observatory tonight, and I could run the 7-inch refractor for the first time." So that's what we did last year for Christmas. But this year we also went out, but there was no astronomy to be had. It's been pretty cold. Like a -15-degree day like yesterday felt really nice. I was out talking to one of my neighbors who's also a sometimes listener to the show, Jeff. And we were standing there chatting. It wasn't too bad, but it was like totally overcast with just a very light flurry coming down. And we drove home because the temperature it has gone a little bit. It's getting a little bit on the cool side for being out there. And I've got to go to work on Monday, so yeah, we came back in. But I think it's supposed to go to like -26 today at some point.
Yeah, and then warming up a little bit here to, near 0 degrees, which is going to be quite nice.
But still cloudy as heck. Eh?
Yeah, still no real opportunity for astronomy, but uh guess one day at a time we'll see how it comes to us.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, we got the place out there. It's going pretty good. Like last year when we went out, if it was much colder than about -10 or so, our place was too cold. Just to be frank, like you would wake up and know if it was below -10. Like you wouldn't see your breath or anything, and the temperature gauge would say maybe it was like 18 or 19, but like it was, one thing I've learned about temperature out here is that when it is cooling and it gets so cold here, like even in a house, you will feel it more, which is something I wasn't as familiar with.
Hmm.
And I don't know what that is exactly, but it's almost like there should be like an exposure rating of some sort. I don't know what to call it because like if it is cooling that fast, even if you're in a house and the house is generating heat, or like in the cabin, if it's generating heat, you're losing heat faster, and so you almost need it to be warmer than what would otherwise be comfortable. Like these days, like I can keep the cabin at 25 degrees Celsius when it's -7 or -8, and that feels comfortable. But once it gets even close to 20 degrees, you start to feel like you're getting cooler. And like yesterday, -15, -16, is fine. -20 is kind of where it starts to feel a little cool out there. Um, but you feel it more, even if the place is saying it's +20 inside, you just feel it more.
Yeah, that's a real thing for sure. 21 degrees is not always 21 degrees in our house, or at least the feel of it is not the same.
Yeah, like in the summer, if your place is at like +20 or +21, it starts feeling too warm. But in the winter here, like we'll keep our place at +21 some of the time, and that can start to feel pretty cold. It's really hard to kind of get your head around because coming from out east, I'd never keep my house at +21. Like that would just be ri ridiculous because as soon as like if you got it that warm, it would just never cool down. Like, you'd be too warm to go to bed. But here, like we had it at +21 for a few hours yesterday when we got home, and I turned it down before going to bed at night, and it was like comfortable,
Hmm.
But like in Nova Scotia where we lived before, if you had it at that, like you'd never sleep. You'd just be like, too hot for sure. So it is weird. Let's see. Did you get any astronomy related Christmas gifts?
I did, yes. My lovely wife gave me a new version 3 Pi Finder, which is kind of great timing, given we just had Richard on the podcast, who is the founder and creator. And I'm excited to try it out, but haven't had it outdoors. I've turned it on indoors, and that's as far as I've gotten with it.
Cool.
Yeah. How about you? Did you get anything under the Christmas tree?
Well, kind of, sort of. So, my wife got me. This is something I've wanted for a long time. It doesn't really sound too astronomical, but really it is. Is some heated socks,
Hmm.
and I might get some heated gloves too. And I'll tell you why. Is that I've kind of got a few different modes, and I feel like you need a lot of different modes here. You need winter gear for when it's like warmer than -10, for slightly colder than -10, for -20 and colder kind of thing. And I have these giant -40 boots. And and typically that's what I've been wearing in the observatory. But the observatory, it retains a little bit of heat and it keeps the wind off you. And they're almost a little bit of overkill unless it really is quite cold, say getting colder than -13 or -14. But warmer than that, I find those boots are just too warm. Like my feet are sweating way too much in them. And so she got me these heated socks that I can just like put in my hiking boots when it's not too cold out there, and flip those on. And then I guess what it comes down to is the big boots, like they limit your flexibility in that. And a lot of the time I'm like kneeling on the floor, looking through a telescope or in some sort of other weird angle, and typically it's not too bad, but I just really want to try a pair of heated socks. Might come in handy camping down the grasslands too. Who knows?
Hmm.
So I'm kind of excited to try those out. And I might get a pair of the heated gloves as well. Is what I'm thinking. But that's pretty exciting about the Pi Finder, though. I'm really intrigued by that and eager to see how it works exactly. Have you made any sort of progress on your thoughts on it? Just having it in hand there.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So maybe a concern that I had prior to actually, having it physically in my hands was just the size of the screen. I have the Nexus digital setting circles, which has a fairly large screen on it, and the Pi Finder is significantly smaller. I'd say maybe inch and a half by 2 inch or to 2 inches squared, something like that. But after receiving it, it's perfect. Like it doesn't need to be any bigger. It's very easy to read. The dimming of the buttons and the screen is quite effective. Like you can get it. Like I don't think it'll be too bright for any astronomy sessions that I have. Um, the buttons feel great. Like really nice feedback. Although I don't think you'd be able to operate it very well without or with gloves or mittens on. The buttons are a little close and small, but I guess it depends on the thickness of your gloves. But navigating the screens is very intuitive, very easy. Like you go into objects and then you pick, or I should have this thing on, but you go in, you pick your catalog, and let's say you picked NGC. You just start typing the NGC number, and then boom, it's there. And so you can get through large lists or large catalogs quite easily in the menu. Um, what else to say? I don't know. It's a little smaller than I was expecting. This is version 3, and I think some of the earlier versions maybe had larger cameras on it, but
Yeah.
yeah, this one's quite small, so the form factor is quite nice.
I wondered about that. It did look a little large in some of the photos, but the really neat thing about a small company like what Richard is running, they're very small, is that you can rapidly develop. So Oh, this one's a little too big, so we're just going to make them smaller. And then sadly, sometimes like the website photos don't get updated, right? But the product is sort of evolving in leaps and bounds, right? And you're getting a better and better product, as the months pass.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it really has me quite excited to get using it. Um, Also interfacing with it is very, very simple. Like connecting to it from like my iPad, for example, was quite easy.
Mm,
And then when you do that, you're able to like load your lists and telescope equipment and eyepieces and all of that,
yeah.
just so that it operates, I think, better, when you're outside. If there's one concern that I have, and I knew this getting into it, it's just the weight of it. Like it is somewhat significant. It's not a light object to have kind of back by the eyepiece. And I think for most like amateur astronomers, it's really not a big deal. The only reason I'm a little sensitive to that is because I like to bino view. So I'm already putting a lot of weight at that end of the telescope, and adding more weight can sometimes cause balance issues for me. So I'll be interested to see how that operates. But one thing I'm going to try to do is just see if I can mount it to the mount itself, like the shoe of the mount, rather than the telescope. And then the weight of this thing is kind of on the central axis, which makes it less significant for any kind of balance issues. So I'm going to try that. And the other thing I'm going to do is like I have that Berleback Caster 2 mount, which is like it's a T mount, and I can put two telescopes on it. But I'm thinking I could probably also put this on like the one side, where I could put an extra telescope, and then it's kind of central, and it's not going to cause me any balance issues.
Huh.
But the 3D printing is great. He used a plastic. It's black, but it has like some looks like gold or silver flecks, sort of reminiscent of looking into space.
Oh, cool.
And like I say, just navigating through it here is so simple. Like I mentioned, the key menu here, or the main menu, doesn't have a ton of options. But for the most part, you would go into objects, and then you can do a custom search, a name search. But I think the way I'll use it is mostly by catalog. And then once you're in catalog, you have planets, comets, NGC, Messier, DSO, and stars. And again, like, you go into DSO, then it's like there's planetary nebula, ARP galaxies, Barnard, Caldwell, Colander, Herschel 400. Like it just goes on and on here. And, if you go into Messier, you just start typing in the number of the Messier object you want, and it takes you right there. And it's kind of neat. Like each object, so like M110, has a little icon beside it to tell you that it's a galaxy. And it's kind of neat, just to help again kind of find what you're looking for fairly quickly.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how this works. I feel like it's got a missing component. I mean, it solves like the missing component. I should rephrase that. And what I mean by that is that when you're using like a go-to scope or one of these other devices for finding things, it's that setup, the accuracy. It takes a lot of futzing to get that accuracy down, like more than I want it to be. It's kind of surprising. It's like about a 15 or 20 minute turnaround between getting the scope going and and actually getting it aligned accurately. And it's a little bit more futzy than you want it to be. Like you got to use an illuminated reticle to get things centered and go through all this kind of stuff, which to me feels like a little bit of overkill as a visual observer, but you really have to do that pretty carefully in order to do your visual observing. But this will just do that plate solving. I'm curious to see how this moves forward as far as like an integration with maybe being able to plug it right into my mount or something. Because if I could get one and plug it into like the auxiliary port or something on my mount and then interface with it with my phone or tablet or whatever, uh, that would just be such a deadly you know setup. I think that really is, I think, what people want. And then the ability to manually slew the scope around and then not have the pointing device lose its ability to know where it is in the sky, unlike most of the other mounts that I've seen. That really solves pretty much the remaining problems I see with a lot of this technology under the night sky.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm really excited to try it out because part of this will be just how quickly does it, um, sort of calibrate for my scope and sky. And by everything I've read, it's super quick. Like I think I'll still use the illuminated reticle eyepiece because the Pi Finder needs to know when a certain star is centered within your telescope, but you just do that on one star, I think, and you're done. Like you're aligned and away you go. So that'll be real quick. And I think it's important to get that part of it right because the Pi Finder has about a 10-degree field of view through that camera. So you just have to tell it exactly,
Yeah,
kind of what's centered in the telescope.
yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes sense. But you don't have to do a couple and then like I often find still it doesn't seem like it's that accurate. I think it's able to actually pick up and figure out, okay, this is Alnitak. This is what, is being referenced. And I know where that is. And then you should be good to go, which kind of seems like the theory behind like a lot of this, the go-to systems, but they're just not there. Like I can spend a long
No.
time getting a couple stars centered, and then when it goes, it's just not quite there as it moves to different areas of the sky. It always seems to be off by a little bit one way or another. Still in the same field of view, but anyway, this seems a little bit tighter because I did read all the specs and everything, and I know that if it works as advertised, it should be fairly quite a bit more accurate than what a lot of the other systems have been. So yeah, I'm super excited to hear how that pans out for you.
Yeah, yeah, me too. Because I've had the same frustrations that you've had where you do all of the alignment, and fine tuning for whatever system you have, and it still seems to struggle at points, in the night. And it's kind of frustrating. And even worse is if you spend all that time, like you in the observatory now, it's not probably an issue, but for me, like sometimes I'll get everything aligned, and then an hour into my session, I'll accidentally kick the tripod. So now it's not aligned anymore, or it's going to be off, and it kind of, again, you then have to go through the whole alignment process, or just shut it down sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I don't run into that exactly, but I noticed that when I park my scope, it doesn't necessarily always park in like the exact spot it should for whatever reason. Now, I mean, albeit it's my mount is pretty old now or whatever, but like I said, for visual, because I'm not doing photos, so it doesn't have to be like this perfect, but it's still not quite there for visual some of the time, like you said. And it's fine. It's just, it's not observing, and it really has nothing to do with observing. It's just like you're kind of messing around with equipment versus doing some astronomy. And what it means is it makes me reluctant to park the scope as much as I might otherwise. And then the other thing is that see, and this is something I only realized recently is if I get a good alignment and get a good park and then I'm working around in the observatory or just hanging out in there, and I move the scope, like I'm take one of the clutches off and put it back. Apparently, it nullifies that previous setting. So you do have to kind of go through and do your whole alignment again. It would be nice to have all that integrated so that you could do the alignment, and then as long as you were set back reasonably within the right zone, that it would be able to kind of figure out any kind of microscopic discrepancy or not. Like, I mean, I can get it within like probably a tenth of a degree from where it was. But if it's not 100% where it was, it doesn't seem to retain the information. So anyway, is what it is. All right, we can talk a little bit more about that in a sec. I bought myself a few things, nothing too earth shattering, but this is something that's not even that expensive, and it was on my to buy list or my want list for a long time. It was just pretty far down the list, and that's I bought a Batter CMOS blue filter.
Hmm. Tell us more about that. What are the advantages of this one?
Well, theoretically, see, it passes the blue spectrum, but not other portions of the spectrum. Into like above the whatever it is, 500 nanometers. It's everything at 500 or 505 and down to who knows, like 400 or 450 or something like that. So that's where all the blue light lives. And by doing that, see if there's any other color spectrum in the sky, which there is from, lights and houses and all this other stuff. Um, you're really only getting just those blue wavelengths. And the theoretical side of it is that this should allow you to see things that are blue or better, such as reflection nebula.
Hmm, interesting.
Yeah, so I'm excited to try that. There's been a few guys over in Germany that have been experimenting with these over the years, and they've written pretty definitive articles on, and just like online on their own like personal blogs and such, but on the results, and they say that yeah, it does help with like the Pleiades or other reflection of, I think of like that NGC 2024 beside Alnitak or Zeta Orionis or the left star of Orion's belt. There's lots of reflection nebula around, and anyway, so that's one of the things, and I've been really excited to try it, and kind of followed those guys along when they were writing about it 3 or 4 years ago, and wanted to get one ever since. It's not like a super expensive filter or anything. It's just a really good blue filter, and I bought the 2 inch, and yeah, just excited to give it a try. And also because I knew it wouldn't, without modifying the filter, I knew it wouldn't fit in my filter slide, which I'm not as keen on in the winter using that filter slide because I've been getting some frost in that collecting on the filters. So so I bought a filter wheel, and I had mentioned this before, and then Chris from North Carolina wrote, and he said, "Hi, Chris and Shane. Greetings from the Southern Appalachians." Or Appalachians, depending on how you want to say that. I think in the States they call it the Appalachians, but up here in Canada we call it the Appalachians. I'm on the northern end of the Appalachians when I'm in Nova Scotia. It's been great to hear great to hear more reports from Namibia. If Saskatchewan could handle it, I'd say you should both go down and enjoy some of those southern skies. Maybe do a podcast from down there. I've got two gear-related notes that pertain to your recent discussions: a manual filter wheel and a worthy alternative to the Pi Finder. The biggest requirement of using my various filters is the fiddly work of fishing them out of their cases and threading onto eyepieces. The idea of a quick change option like the integrated slide diagonal you mentioned seems very appealing, and that's the solution I should have pursued. Instead, I ordered a manual filter wheel because I figured it would offer better protection and storage for my 2 inch filters. Did I stop to consider how much length it would add to the light path, or I guess how much length in the draw tube it would, and how that would impact the light path, perhaps is the way to put it. No. Now I have to configure the filter wheel, but neither my f5.9 Dob nor my f5.4 Genesis has sufficient in focus when using a diagonal, at least in the Genesis. I'm considering an ultra low eyepiece adapter. I was hoping to figure out something with the wheel, but my heart sank, and had referenced your using of your Genesis. So he gave me a link to a low profile eyepiece filter. And then he went on to say, it seemed that Mark piqued your curiosity with his report of using a Pi Finder. So I thought I'd tell you of an alternative I discovered on Cloudy Nights. It's called the Cedar Hopper and is another plate solver. And their pre-production finder integrates a compact camera and Raspberry Pi computer on a Cintas style footer. I suspect the one thing you wouldn't care for, Shane, is that the UI requires a smartphone or tablet. This doesn't bother me since it's easy to apply dim red filters to an iPhone screen, and it works beautifully with the Sky Safari. Oh, did he buy it? He didn't say if he bought it or not. I'm curious. Chris, did you buy that? I'm looking forward to the arrival of my RAC calendar and handbook. Thanks for your purchase. Happy holidays, Chris. So, yeah, that looks like a neat alternative, eh?
Yeah, yeah, it's just kind of a chunk of plastic with a camera in it that goes into, a dovetail shoe of sorts, like your Finder, and yeah, pretty basic. I guess it needs power. It looks like just like a remote battery pack, and then away you go. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, neat to see. I hadn't heard of that one before. Had you?
No, no. So then, does it have its own software? Or you just use Sky Safari?
Sorry. Yeah.
Hmm.
Anyway, it's neat to see these different things evolving. Um, yeah, curious to see how that one comes about too. Getting back to his filter wheel, so I wrote Chris back because I did buy a filter wheel and had the hesitation because of issues such as he reported. And there's a couple things people can try perhaps. So first of all, on my scope. It's designed to put things into the light path. It's actually not really designed to just stick a diagonal on the end, good or bad. And it's even been modified, even more so, my version, because the owner previous to me, I think it said three or four owners now, uh, sent the focuser assembly back to Moonlight and had a larger draw tube installed. But the draw tube is too short for the light cone, and so you need to do one of a few different things, and that can be to install a longer draw tube that threads inside the focuser. Sort of hard to explain. I didn't really understand it even after I got it, and it took some messing around once I got it loaded up on the mount, and I'm still kind of getting my head around it. But basically, my focuser has a 2.5 inch diameter draw tube. And then what you do is you can thread in various other draw tubes inside of that to make it 2 inch to fit your 2 inch accessories.
Hmm.
And if you just use it in the original format and thread in your 2 inch adapter, you it doesn't you don't get enough out focus. Like you won't be able to focus in a regular diagonal. You would need to put an extension tube in of about 2 inches in length. And so when the guy sent it down, he sent it with a 2 inch extension from Teleview, like a really, really old one. So I bought a new one that had two set screws. I really didn't like that. And so I had checked with Moonlight a couple times, and then eventually they did start making these um, extension tubes that would fit this focuser that I have. So I ended up getting a 2 inch focuser adapter, or sorry, draw tube that will fit the adapter that I have anyway. And so I thread that in and then I use it. And really, nobody would ever really notice this, except that it does kind of have a bit of a longer run to it. And yeah, it's just the way the focuser is set up. So what it does allow me to do though is I can use my uh, Lumicon multiple filter selector, and these were pretty expensive diagonals with a filter slide, and they ate up a lot of back focus. And I can still use it in that format. I don't need to take the extra length draw tube out, but I have to focus in almost all the way. And I think I can just get it to focus without it, although I haven't played around too much with that. But it is kind of a futzy thing. But what you can do is you can take out that draw tube and just thread in your adapter, and you just need to make sure that whatever you're putting in there eats up about 2 inches of focal length. So like a filter wheel, you can stick in and then put your diagonal on, and it will work just like a regular telescope without having to put in that 2 inch adapter. Anyway, it's a messy setup when you try to explain it, but it's invisible. Like as you've seen, Shane, like you would never guess how much messing around goes into that focuser when you actually see it in real life.
Yeah, yeah, I bet.
So you can get all kinds of different lengths. You can get like a 1 inch length and half-inch lengths and 1 3/4. So you can kind of fine tune it to whatever your setup is. So I got the filter wheel now. I haven't put it on, but I think probably what I'll do is I'll stick it on, and then I'll take that 2 inch length out and just put the adapter in and see if I can get focused that way. But it probably will take some playing around and guesswork, and I might end up having to get another couple of those tube lengths just to see. But they're not expensive. I think they're $59 US. So it's not a real expensive thing to do, but I'm probably going to have to do something like that. One of the things that I recommended to Chris, though, is that he could get a diagonal that you can take the barrel off, and if you can figure out an adapter or something to thread it onto the, I forget what they are, like M48 threads on the filter wheel, then he probably would gain a little bit by simply having that adapter threaded or the filter wheel threaded directly onto the diagonal. But then you can't turn the diagonal or anything. And I don't know how close the diagonal would end up being to the filter wheel itself, and if that would be a problem to look through. I don't know, but that would be one way to get around that.
Yeah, yeah. Part of the joys, right? Figuring out equipment.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of equipment, Kirk wrote a short email here. Do you want to take a read, and then we'll sort of
Yeah,
get to the show?
sure. So Kirk said, just listen to podcast number 514. Good stuff. I heard you mentioning looking at a cat's perch chair. I got my new cat's perch chair about 2 weeks ago. I got it with a cushion and unfinished. I just completed the fifth and final coat of tung oil, and it's beautiful. It will be very nice to have a seat when viewing objects from the horizon to zenith on my 18-inch Obsession. My current chair does not go high enough. Like Shane said, and I think you actually said it, Chris, but it's a little pricey and will save me but will save me extended viewing sessions and reduce back pain from standing while viewing. Good investment. I also got a Mark II filter slide from Astrochrome, and it's made a huge difference for me in the two observing sessions. It is so convenient to switch filters and even keep your eye on the eyepiece. It has a dew heater attached as well. Very nice item to add on. I'm considering building a small wooden box slash cart that I could put gear into, which then could be hauled to a viewing location. I may not need a heater in it, but it would be nice to have to consolidate gear. Really glad to hear your observatory is doing well, and from Kirk.
Yeah, I think he's got an 18-inch scope. But yeah, I was curious. I went back and forth with him on a bit about the cat's perch. He got the original. That's what I'm looking at too. But I think that will make things a little bit easier when I get around to it. All right, so let's talk a little bit about navigating the night sky. Shane, I personally started with paper charts, mainly the Sky Atlas 2 2000 from Will Tyrion, bought through Sky and Telescope. But I started about as basic as one can with the Terrence Dickinson Night Watch charts in there, and he's got a set of four seasonal charts, and on one side he has a representation of the night sky, a drawing, but it sort of has a bluish black background with white stars and a pretty good depiction of what you see as an all sky view, say in the wintertime. And then on the other side, he'll have an actual star chart of the same size and with all the stars and everything, but it's that pretty standard black stars on white background with a few other things denoting where deep sky objects and such are. And that it's really hard to get one's head around, but I think that is the best way to start learning how to identify things in the night sky. I've never seen anything like it, and I think that buying a Terrence Dickinson's Night Watch, if someone's looking to get started, or you really want to learn to navigate the night sky with your unaided eye, that is absolutely the best thing to do, I think.
Yeah, yeah, you can't go wrong with Night Watch. Great book to start off with, and can certainly last many years for you.
And and then very soon after I got started with that stuff, some freeware came out called Carte du Ciel. And I downloaded that, and really just using that software and going back and forth with star charts has always been sort of a cornerstone in my observing. And I'm not sure, Shane, how you got started in navigating the night sky, but that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Yeah. Excuse me. Similarly, I had Terrence Dickinson's Night Watch, but it is a little basic, and I wanted, more objects, so I did get Sky Atlas 2000, but it was the desktop version, and it was way too big to use beside the telescope. So, I ended up landing on the Pocket Sky Atlas, which really is kind of the Sky Atlas 2000, but in a much more manageable form factor. But in addition to that, I also use a planisphere. You can get these things from all sorts, like pretty much any astronomy store. Lots of astronomy clubs have them. In fact, you can probably find some you could just print online. The key with the planisphere is to make sure you get one that is like oriented for your latitude. But once you have it, it really makes finding the constellations quite easy to identify. And even if you know the constellations well, but maybe you don't have a lot of experience under dark skies, having the planisphere there can be a bit of a bonus because it can be difficult sometimes to identify the boundaries of some constellations under a dark sky because of how many stars there are. So that's kind of the basis of it. I did play around with like the Triatlas, which I don't think is available anymore. And I don't remember who made the Triatlas, but there were three versions, and they were all free. You would download the PDFs, and they were, complete charts of the night sky. There was an A, B, and a C, and I think A was like pretty basic, sort of naked eye binocular, maybe a little bit deeper than that. B was like the primary for most amateurs, and then I think the C was for like if you have big aperture and you're chasing really faint stuff, it had everything. And I printed the entire Triatlas B. In fact, I still have that paper copy. I might even have the digital copy somewhere too. But it was good, but it's just very busy, and I struggled sometimes to really be efficient with those things. So they didn't actually get a lot of use. I really landed on the Pocket Sky Atlas for the most part.
Yeah. Um, and one of the challenges with learning how to navigate the night sky and using these charts, I always felt like it's not a simple thing to do, hey? Like it's not kind of as easy as some people seem to make it out to be. And I never really, I sort of understood that implicitly, but I was doing this event at the art gallery with John Nosteden. And he's originally from Amsterdam but lives in Kingston, Ontario. Anyways, here out in Saskatchewan for a show, and they wanted to do something more than just have him there, and we sort of did a thing with the astronomy club and that I helped set up. And he was a funny guy, and I really liked what he had done, but what he had done was he used a variety of like star charts, particularly like from Burnham's Celestial Handbook, and had blown those up and modified them in different ways, and it was really cool. Um, and then as part of the exhibit, he like personally went and did like this big walk around with them, and me. I didn't really contribute too much, but just to kind of be like sort of quote unquote the astronomer there. And anyway, we did like this walk around. It had like 100 people there, and it was super fascinating just to hear him talk about representing the night sky and how star charts are such a lie, which I thought was and sort of in a very comical but pointed way. And I thought it was amazing. I never really thought about it before, but it really impacted the way I try to explain these things to people. And in particular, the lie is that in the star charts you see, and Shane, you'll know this well, the brighter stars, how are they represented, right? What do they
Yeah, like a much bigger dot.
Yeah, but how do they look when you look at them with your eye or through a telescope?
Yeah, well, like sometimes you kind of get that impression too.
Well, but they're all the same size. Like you never see a star get bigger, right? It's
No, no, but a brighter star sort of gives an impression sometimes, I think, that it's bigger, even though it's really not.
Well, maybe, but I think only if your telescope is out of focus. But if you focus on a star, they're all the same size. It's just the brightness that changes. And because of that, and if you're actually looking at a chart and it's representing that, like it's a different form of representing, because on a chart you can't represent that brightness. And the same with software. The software doesn't show a star as brighter. They still typically will just show them as bigger, although usually not to the same exaggeration as what a chart will show. But I think that's an impediment for people learning the night sky. Is what this boils down to, is that when you're not seeing with your eye what is being demonstrated on a chart, then that I think that creates a barrier for people to actually learn the night sky.
Yeah, that's fair.
And it's not done with everything. Like M31 is not represented as being this massive galaxy because it's the brightest galaxy we can see in the nighttime sky. It's depicted to actual size. So if you actually start thinking about the different way different things are represented, and that the nebulas are all represented as like these green outlines, right? And then the Milky Way is represented as a blue isophoto. I mean, it's a way of representing the sky, but it's not something that people are familiar with at all. It's reading star charts and learning to interpret them and learning to apply that to the night sky is a whole skill set in itself. Hey?
Yeah, yeah. And one of the things that I like, it took me a little bit to realize this, is the scale of the sky compared to the scale of the star chart. And you and I have had many conversations about this, Chris, often at the telescope, of how, like, some star charts, the scale just doesn't seem right. You look on the chart and you think that a certain object is close to a bright star. And then you look up in the sky and you find out that it's way further away than you ever thought. And if I had a criticism of the Pocket Sky Atlas, it is that the scale in there is kind of a little wonky compared to what it feels like in the sky.
Yeah. And the best way to represent, and this is something that software struggles with because, when you're sitting just, in the office, I'm sitting in my office at home. If you're just sitting in your office, you have the star chart open, you zoom in and out to look at different things or whatever. You look at the star charts I made for the observer's calendar this month. But those aren't properly scaled. Okay. And like, I don't know, you could look at it on a 40-inch monitor, just like a laptop monitor, like I have. It's going to be a little bit different for you. Put it on a phone, it's going to be different still, right? And when you're comparing that to the night sky, it seems like it might be an easy thing just to adjust it to match the night sky, but that is not easy. And the scale will also depend on how far you hold it from your eye. If you hold it at arm's length, it's going to be one thing. If you hold it in super close, it's going to be a completely different thing as well. So I know that when I first took software out into the nighttime sky, even being fairly experienced at that time, it gave me a headache. Literally, it gave me a headache trying to get that dialed in. It's that is not that easy to do. So that's why, at least for me anyway, I always recommend that people try to start with the paper charts, and that they use something like the Pocket Sky Atlas can be okay, but Sky Atlas 2000 can be better. And then there's definitely still so much merit in using one of these paper charts, because at least the Sky Atlas or the Pocket Atlas, even if they're off a little bit for you, it's still all consistent. So once you use it for like a few minutes, you kind of adapt to that scale, eh?
Yeah, yeah. Once you realize kind of just how it translates into the night sky, you can just have a better understanding of where everything really is, and not kind of overshoot or undershoot based on what you think, or where you think it should be based on the chart you're looking at.
Yeah. I eventually moved on to running Sky Safari for my astronomy classes that I taught for over a dozen years. I ended up teaching over 50 classes, maybe 60 classes. They're all like 4 to 8 weeks in length, but I used the Sky Safari for that. And then when I was looking for a mount for my observatory and I wanted to stick with an LDAS mount, I looked at a variety of different options, but I found an AZEQ6 here pretty inexpensively, which they can be bought for. It's got manual clutches and a hand paddle, but quickly realized that running in the go-to mode was the way to go because the clutches were a bit sketchy with a 50-pound scope. So I bought one of the Astro Gadgets, which is a Bluetooth device you can connect to your Sky Safari, and that's how I run things there. But I'll tell you, you think that that is going to be like a very simple solution, but getting everything aligned, as we talked about earlier, is that's its own challenge. And then as well, like if you don't know what is up and where it is in the sky, you are going to be like very lost trying to figure out what you're going to look at or where things are. You might go out to look at Orion in the winter. Well, that's great, but in general, like there might be a whole pile of things you might want to see, and when are they going to be best placed? And trying to futz around with the software that you've dimmed down and made red at night and sort all that out. I still have a Pocket Atlas and Sky Atlas 2000 that you kindly gave me, and then I have my Interstellarum Atlas that I use out there because that really gives you that scale and presence in the nighttime sky. Those paper charts I think are much easier to read than the software, and then they can give you sort of more of that context for what you might want to be taking a look at, eh?
For sure.
So with all that in mind, I'm just curious, kind of reflecting on those representations. How does the Pi Finder fit into all that? And I know you've used some of the Nexus devices as well. I'm just wondering, like, how do those sort of integrate in how you're navigating the nighttime sky?
Yeah, well, it really has largely replaced paper for me. Now, I still take my Pocket Sky Atlas with me, um, just to confirm locations of objects, because occasionally, like all of the digital assistants that you have can fail you, or as we've talked about, not be accurate. So you still, at least I found, I need to confirm star fields, and like positional references for the objects that I'm looking for, just to confirm that the Nexus has actually put me onto the right thing. So a lot less paper, but there is still a need for it. But probably what's more important with the Nexus or the Pi Finder is just having your list of objects that you're going to look at that night, because you can get to them very quickly, you using these assistants. And like for me in the past, a big night of observing would be, maybe 5 to 8 objects. Just because it would take time to, go look at the chart, go to the telescope, bump around, stars by star hopping to get to where I thought I should be looking, and then validating that on the chart. And sometimes that can take a while, especially if you're chasing faint things. But with like the Nexus, still haven't been able to use the Pi Finder, but using the Nexus digital setting circles, it's super easy to like do 10 to 20 objects in a short period of time because of how efficient you are getting there. So it has changed how I observe, and I quite enjoy it. But like I say, I still take some paper with me in case I have any kind of issues. Because one night I was having a challenge with the Nexus, and I don't think I did the alignment properly, so I wasn't really locating anything. And I didn't have any paper star charts, so I just kind of looked at things based on my memory. But, nothing new that I needed a star chart for, because I had no reference for any of that.
Yeah. And sometimes I'm still kind of like looking for certain things, and I just want to, maybe there's a big sucker hole that's coming in. I'm trying to figure out like what's going to be there while my telescope is pointed somewhere else, and I don't want to mess around with the software. So I'll kind of go back and forth, but it's hard to explain, but it's very handy to understand where things are and how to find them in that more manual way when you're using this stuff, particularly if you're going after some challenging objects or trying to see certain things. Like for example, with my setup, like sometimes I'm trying to see, one of the things I'm observing at is difficult planetary nebula features. So some of the nebula aren't that difficult, like M57, but there are halo features. I haven't been able to see the one in M57 so well, but I think it's the blue snowball. I was looking at some of the details within the Blinking Planetary Nebula, and those kind of targets and that kind of observing. It's the same skills. You're just applying them differently. So the ability to be able to maybe find a very, very faint planetary nebula in a field, like you know it's in that field somewhere, but you've kind of got, okay, this is the star pattern. This is where that object should be based on the star pattern, knowing how to kind of flip or reverse the images in your mind when you're looking at the star chart and going back to the telescope. All that kind of stuff is just something that really can only be taught in that manual way.
Hmm.
So that's kind of how I navigate the night sky. Do you have anything else to add to that, Shane, before we get on to a couple more listener emails?
No, that's all I have.
Hey, had one here from Jamie, and he wrote, let's see, great episode as always. I wanted to comment on the smart telescope part of the discussion, and I would highly recommend the Sea Star 50. Chris, what you describe, you do with it, taking photos in the background while observing is exactly how I use mine. I'll pick a target or two to photograph while I'm doing visual with another scope, typically far enough away from the light of my smartphone. I started off as a visual astronomer, but always wanted to have some kind of photo reference for what I observed to show other people when talking about my observations. To me, astrophotography is a different animal, and I have lots of respect for people who put in all the time and effort. They create some amazing photos. I have to give it several times, uh, but don't have the patience for that kind of level of astrophotography, I think is what he's getting at. That's why the C Star 50 has been such a game changer for me. It's a bit of a cheat code, but I don't care. It would be great if it worked better on the planets. But I'm sure something will come out sooner than later that will do that. I'll toss some photos for you guys, but I think you should both invest in one of these. Shane, I'm waiting for your review of the Pi Finder. Clear skies. Merry Christmas to you both. Looking forward to what you have in store for 2026. Jamie, well, thanks so much for that, Jamie. Appreciate it. Yeah, I'm very interested in that Sea Star. I kind of almost can't wait for like the next version or two to come out. I think, but I could totally see having one of those, and because I have my staging area outside the observatory, and to set one up on there while I'm observing, I think would be super cool.
Yeah, yeah. I think it would be neat to have, an automated telescope or smart scope collecting photons and capturing some images while you're able to get onto some visual observing.
Yeah. Do you want to read the last email there from Peter?
Yeah, Peter said, "Hi, Chris and Shane. Merry Christmas and all the best for the new year. Thanks for another excellent year of podcasts. Last Saturday morning around 5:30 a.m., I got some images of the interstellar comet 3I Atlas from my South Phoenix backyard. I used my C8 Edge HD at native focal length, which is 2032 millimeters, and an ASI 2600 dual camera on a ZWO AM5N mount.
Mm.
That's a nice mount. I got 20 times, 20 times 30-second frames and processed them with the common alignment process in PixInsight and a few other tricks. He attached a MP4 movie and just to show some of the movement.
Yeah, you can even take a look at it. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it yet. I did.
Yeah, it was pretty neat.
That link, yeah, I was able to get that link to work. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Then he just gave a stacked image, just about, it looks like 5 minutes. It's quite faint in there. And then mentioned that he had a couple enjoyable visits to CSV over the last few weeks for imaging and visual observation using the new NP127IS, which is spectacular under a dark sky.
Yeah.
And then sent us an image of M1 that he captured with his C8. Very nice.
That is a wild image. It's funny. His observing session sounds very similar to mirroring mine a few weeks before there, because I was observing 3I Atlas and M1. Even did a sketch of M1. I spent like 40 or 50 minutes on it, and using all kinds of different powers. And I could see, you can see there's like that. There's a few bright stars like right within a M1, and I could see those, and then those main kind of sort of filaments that he has in his photo, I could kind of see those as well, and definitely that bulgy area and the hollow. Yeah, you could see those. It's amazing what you can see if you really sit and look for a long period of time
Hmm.
in the dark at 3 a.m. with a 50-pound telescope over your head. It's a lot of fun, trust me. Cool. Yeah, well, that's really nice. That really is quite the photo of M1, though. I gotta say, it's amazing. To me, it's amazing. When I first got into this, and you would not even be able to find an image of M1 that good, or maybe the very best one in the world, taken at the very best astrophysical observatory of some sort, might have a photo about that good. And now people just take it with just an 8-inch Smith Cassegrain, which I mean that's a really great one. That Celestron, don't get me wrong, but it's like a really good 8-inch Smith Cassegrain, which is like the standard workhorse of astrophotographers for like the past, however many decades. And now people like Peter are going out and taking a photo that would rival like the best photos of M1 ever taken up to like the year 2000 or something. It's unbelievable really to actually see that.
Yeah, just how accessible this stuff is now is amazing. And, part of me wishes I was more into astrophotography because I really do appreciate what, Peter is able to do and others. Um, but I think for now, I'll just keep enjoying their work and, stick to my visual.
Yeah, I mean, I love looking at astrophotos. I
Yeah, well,
really
me too. Yeah.
um it's one of the reasons why I like doing the calendar so much is just going through and seeing all the different astrophotos people take. But yeah, it's fantastic. Just great stuff, Peter. And yeah, really, really neat. I didn't know the AM5 could. I don't know why that mount looks so small and portable, but I know that the weight capacity on it is quite a bit. I've even heard of people putting some pretty big refractors on that and with good success. So well done anyway. But yeah, certainly if you want to send us your astro photos and some of your own experiences as well, we love to hear about them and read about them as well. It's really, really cool just to see what people are out there doing. But this photo, I've put it in the notes, and maybe we can post these notes up online, Shane. But it's just amazing, and we've certainly received lots of amazing photos from other folks over the years. Really should get like a gallery going or something.
Hmm.
Cool. All right. Anything else, Shane, to add to this episode?
No, that's all I have.
All right, folks, please subscribe, share the show with other stargazers you know. Send us your show ideas, observations, and questions to actualastronomy@gmail.com.
Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we hope you enjoyed the show. If you are interested in more information, would like to contact us, or if you would like to support the podcast, check out our website, actualastronomy.com.